We just watched a movie that's supposed to climb to new heights.
And if you guys watched it, did it fall short of your expectations or did it reach the top?
This is our review of Fall.
Yeah, let's dive in, or let's climb up. I should say. I guess. Yeah. We'll dive in if it was 47 meters down, but let's climb up.
But we should probably explain what the movie's about a little bit before we go into it. So let's go ahead. Cut to our movie description featuring Sean Marcus as the movie actor voice.
Fall is the story of two friends, Becky and Hunter, who decide to challenge themselves and climb a 2,000-foot TV tower to post to Hunter's social media and scatter the ashes of Becky's husband Dan after he died in a climbing accident a year before. After reaching to the top of the tower, they are unable to climb back down as the ladder broke off. When help doesn't come and cell phone reception fails, they must work together and try to figure out a way down.
Nice, man. We were trying to figure out what movie we wanted to watch. I listed off a few, you know, that I had watched recently and forced you to watch Fall.
When did you watch this one?
Earlier.
Because it's been out, a year, right? Or
yeah, no, I watched it earlier this week. Personally, I thought it would have kept me entertained the whole time. I have my gripes about it, but I want to know, what did you think, like, when you watched it? Like, first impressions.
So my first thoughts, kind of watching the intro and watching the movie unfold, it was a bit predictable. Mm-hmm. You know, like a lot of these movies, there's a lot of moments where I'm like, come on, seriously? But like overall, it was entertaining enough to keep me engaged through the whole thing. So like, I didn't hate it. Like, I didn't love it, but like, I would watch it and I would tell people to watch it, especially if they like movies like, you know, Open Waters or like 47 meters down, where like people are just trapped and they got to figure out a way out. Like Descent, that one. You know, if you like movies like that, you know, then I feel like you'd like this one. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was directed or is produced by the same people that did 47 meters down. So it definitely has that same vibe. Instead of being underneath the water, you're up.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people call this one 47 meters up, even though it was 700 meters up.
Is that how high it was? I can't remember.
3 feet per meter.
I think I'm with you, though, man. I started watching it, and it felt a bit predictable and all that stuff. But I go climbing, and so it drove me nuts, like right off the bat. I mean, it was like a fun drive me nuts. I'm just like, you wouldn't climb this way. That's just so dangerous. You just wouldn't do it.
Are you talking about the intro, or are you talking about the tower?
Everything climbing scenario.
So clearly they never consulted with climbing experts.
No, but they're like climbing some ridiculous climbs like right off the bat. But it makes it exciting. If you don't know anything about climbing, then it just looks cool because now they got it all framed up nice where you got the 3 people climbing. But the issue with that is you wouldn't climb that way in real life. You wouldn't climb side by side to each other because you would be following the same route.
I don't know anything about climbing really, except for I feel like she was definitely not actually a free climber. So I don't believe at all that she was a free climber.
So the opening scene, they have Becky and Dan hooked up together, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're husband and wife.
Yep, and then what's the other girl's name? I can't remember.
Hunter.
Yeah, she's off, like you said, free soloing on the far left. They're hooked up, but they're like right next to each other. That wouldn't happen because you need that rope. You'd have one person doing the belay, giving the person slack as they're climbing up. And then if they fall, they're there to catch it. And they have special devices and stuff that are going to obviously like lock in, kind of like a seatbelt. When it pulls too hard, it will lock in. But you wouldn't have each other climbing side by side. But it's like super exciting having it that way because, of course, Dan falls and then... Right?
I think everybody predicts he's gonna fall.
Yeah, I don't like. Oh, they all made it safely. Like exciting movie, right?
Yeah. No conflict resolution or anything.
So he falls, and then his first instinct is, "Hey, remove your rope and so that I could probably swing a little bit closer to the wall. You wouldn't do that. You would just give some more slack or help that person over there. You wouldn't put yourself in danger by disconnecting from the rope itself. I'm not even talking about the person hanging. I'm talking about the person like that's above, like holding the person. You wouldn't disconnect and be free soloing all of a sudden, like, just to see if he can swing closer. But beyond all those little gripes and stuff that I will have more of when we get further into it, I actually felt the movie was entertaining and the pace just continued on with such a small little cast.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like I said, like there wasn't really a dull moment, you know, like oh man, come on, let's get to it. Like they kind of just went from boom, that to like, okay, here's a little bit of what has happened this last year. And then boom, here's the tower. I like that they didn't waste a lot of time.
Yeah, no, the pacing was great. It takes talent to be able to take such a small cast, and it's such a limited environment to be in. And I just enjoy those types of movies if they can pull them off.
Yeah, if you can pull those off, you've got a good movie, I think. So what's your favorite moment in this movie?
Honestly, I think all of my gripes were my favorite moment because it kept me entertained through it, and it probably drove Diana nuts. I was the person being like, yeah, you wouldn't do that. Like, why don't they do this? Like the whole entire movie. So I'm like, these people shouldn't be climbing. I think those are my favorite parts, is just my interaction with the movie, from the mountain climbing. And then even on the tower, they are climbing up. They have a rope between them. I think they only had like 50 feet of line, and they don't have any safeties on there. They're not clipping. You would have two clips. Like one is always clipped and the next one would go up and you'd climb up a little. Before you disconnected one, you'd clip another one. So you're always secure.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know much about climbing. I've done a little bit, kind of like an REI, you know, on the climbing wall stuff there. But like I had a lot of gripes in terms of the actual structure and like parts in the movie where you're like, no, that's not how it is. But like I get, for the sense of the storyline, you've got to make some, you know, alterations to what, you know, would actually be in reality.
So like, what was your favorite then?
My favorite scene probably was like, you know, they climbed up and like dropped, you know, that they need to go get their backpack so that they could call for help or, you know, get the drone in the water and all that stuff. She had to like jump down to retrieve the bag. And like, you know, there's all that with all of these movies, like it was a Cliffhanger and all those climbing movies where they're like, you know, hanging on. And then it's like, boom, they jump and like barely make it. Like no matter how bad or cheesy a movie is, like those moments always kind of make my cheeks clench.
Yeah, man.
So I think that was probably my favorite. But along that line, one of my gripes was that there were so many parts in this movie where like their grip is slipping, you know, they're like, oh no. And then all of a sudden the next scene, they're like, boom, ta-da. Like they're always so close and like they're like losing their strength. But then all of a sudden like, pop, yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Your favorite part was driving me nuts. Yeah. Like, you know, so they got the backpack. It's on the rope hanging down, right? And so now she has to get from the satellite to the backpack that's dangling on the rope. And she's getting ready to jump. And Becky's up top just looking at her, like watching her get ready to do this jump. I'm like, grab the rope and move it one like square over. Like you got the edge here, like she's over here. Like, can you just you could put it right in front of her. She could maybe, instead of having to jump out to it, maybe she could like jump up or stand on her toes. Like,
yeah, I didn't even catch that part.
Oh
like,
man,
I wasn't paying attention.
It felt like such a long scene of me just going, move the rope. Like the bag could be right in front of her. She got down to that point.
Yeah, that was one of those come on moments for you then. To me, like, in my mind, I'm not really questioning what's going on up top. I'm like, oh yeah, you can just slide it over. Like, yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, there were so
now
many
that I think
scenes
about
like
that was pretty dumb. I mean, I wrote down a lot of like just ridiculous things. Speaking of the bag, it was only the drone and the water in the bag, right? Because they both had their cell phones up there, I think, right?
Yep, they had two cell phones.
They're like, oh, we've lost cell phone reception. Like, Why? Why did you lose cell phone reception? Because like cell phone antennas, I looked it up, they can actually reach to 10,000 feet. It gets pretty spotty up there. But like even at 5,000 feet, if you've got a clear line of sight, you've got good reception. So if they had reception at the bottom, they would have reception at the top.
You know why they didn't have good reception? Because they didn't have Mint Mobile. They would have had like the value of Mint Mobile plus the service that could have saved their lives.
Yeah, exactly. See? And Ryan Reynolds would have choppered in himself, lowered down that rope, and pulled him up.
Exactly, yeah. The Ryan Reynolds emergency line, and
he's
be
got
there
nothing else to
like
do
that.
Except for save busty women on cell phone towers.
Yeah.
I mean, TV towers.
They actually built like 100-foot tower for this, and they did all of their own little stunts on it. 100 feet's still like pretty high to be up there. They're all strapped in, of course, like how they actually should be. But even the ladder falling off, Becky, the actress, she did that herself. Like they had her strapped in and she hung onto the ladder as it fell back. They were like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And she goes, "Yeah, I want to do this." So there was all the practical effects stuff. I think that's what creates the tension too. And
well, I was going to say, since you bring up these fun facts, let's throw out a little 2 truths and 1 lie. You kind of touched on my first one. Okay. They did build a 100-foot tower, but they actually built that 100-foot tower on the top of a mountain and recorded up there. So perspective-wise, it would all look the same. That's number 1. Number 2, the actors were told in order to get the part in the movie, they would have to climb the real tower so that they could get a sense and feel that fear of being that high. Or number 3, the film actually had about 50 F-bombs that they dropped, and they had to edit those out with AI in order to get a PG-13 rating. Ooh. Which one's the lie? Come back at the end of the credits and we'll tell you.
Speaking of like the tower stuff, they actually had a bunch of different issues going on being in the desert. There was like these storms actually came in, and I guess at one point they got up to 60-mile-an-hour winds. They were moving all their equipment in and stuff, and things are just blowing around. Like you got the mats and stuff blowing around, the towers like wobbling and stuff. And then on top of all of that, they ended up building the tower on top of an anthill, and they were like flying ants. So there's just these behind the scenes footage of all of these flying ants just covering them, and they're just like getting them off themselves, and the whole man, it's like,
that sounds miserable.
Yeah. So
do flying ants bite?
I don't know, man, but either way, I don't want to be in the midst of flying ants everywhere. It looked miserable, but a lot of things were done practically, and I think that's what made the tension feel so good, and probably added to the misery of having to deal with storms and having to deal with flying ants all over.
Yeah, there was really only, because they filmed on top of a real tower, there was really only one scene where I'm like, that's green screen, it looked kind of bad. And that's when the rope was like dangling and they were like trying to pull it up or get down or something, and you could tell that it was kind of green screen. But other than that, everything looked super realistic.
Yeah, speaking of the rope dangling and them having to like pull each other up. So you got Hunter, she's up there, and she's doing a pretty good job. You got Becky like dangling down there, because I think that's when the ladder fell, and she's like trying to pull her back up. Now, Hunter has it going around the pole up top. Mm-hmm. And she's pulling. That's great. You have that friction there. But then this next time when Becky had to pull Hunter up, she's like pulling it towards her and then like hooking it around, but it's not having the tension on it. So she's just doing that. So I was like, that's not doing anything.
Let's do a lot more work for yourself.
Unless she's like tying it off onto something each time, but I doubt it.
Nope. What was another gripe of yours?
Man, you just want me to complain this whole episode? Or what?
I'm just curious, because I got a few more, but mine aren't about climbing really. One of my first gripes about the tower itself is like, they only had the one set of guy wires, and it's guy wires, not guide wires, people, by the way. Ooh. They only had one set of guy wires like that went to like the middle of the tower, and then the rest of it was just freestanding.
Yeah, I know.
And like they always have like to the middle and then to the very top, then on top of that, when you get to the top of the platform, there's going to be like little rungs on the side of the pole to get the person, because there's someone that has to get up there, I think every 6 months, to replace those bulbs. Like you wouldn't just have like a pole that they have to like climb up.
Yeah. And charge their phone on it.
Yeah, that was another thing. Like, okay, here, just hang on here for 3 hours while you charge this drone.
Like if you have to do that, climb up, get it as secure as you can, and then like hopefully leave it there and like come back down. There's no way you're gonna do this and have vultures like attacking you and still be like, could just like there's no way.
Yeah, and vultures don't attack live people.
And then Hunter's just standing down there looking at her, like doing it. I'm like,
good job. Really? Keep it up. It's got to be charged to 100%. Why?
That's what I was like. I would get 1 bar and call it good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why 100%?
But then also like the drone itself, it's got a Wi-Fi reception for their phone, right? Mm-hmm. And that's only like 100 feet. It's way farther to that restaurant. It was like several miles to that restaurant. So that wouldn't fly either. But
we're doing a lot of complaining about the movie. It's not really complaining. I think they're just little gripes, I think. Yeah. Which is just like any movie, a horror movie. There's always the gripes like of them running all slow and falling down or doing stupid stuff, going upstairs. I think they're just fun little gripes that we have for it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was entertained.
Me hate the movie.
And they have some fun little like unexpected twists.
Yeah. I would say 2 twists kind of in there that you discover.
So while we've been like sitting here and we're like have all these little gripes about they're not doing this safe, they're not doing that safe, we need to put it to the test for ourselves. How would you approach this? You and we got to the top of this tower. The ladder fell. There's no way of getting down. We're stuck with a rope. We got 2 cell phones. We got a drone. What are you going to do?
If we're on this situation that they're in, I would have probably written a note around Hunter and then pushed her off. I don't know. I couldn't really think of a scenario out of there.
You'd just be up there, just stuck and just have no other options if they don't have the guy wires like for you.
Yeah, what's your scenario?
Man, good thing you have me with you.
Let me guess. You would take the rope apart slowly and turn it into 2 ropes by unweaving it.
No, I wouldn't trust myself to do all that. Okay. What I'd probably try to do is get down to that satellite level like she did, and then we have the rope passed back down, and I'm going to probably climb down like those guys who do the tree thing where they climb up trees and they like hook the little rope thing around, they pull it tight and then they walk down. I would probably look to see how far the next section is with like the next bit of ladder that didn't fall off and try to get down to that point. Or if it was, tie it off up to the satellite so I could slide down if I had enough rope to do that. Otherwise, I'm hooking it around and I'm going to pull that as hard as I can and just try to slowly slide down as much as I can.
I think that whole tree thing would be if you didn't have enough rope, I think that would be your best option.
I think the hard part is going to be moving that rope down if you're trying to shimmy it down. Either way, it's going to be a sketchy and messed up situation.
So should we rate this movie?
Yeah, we should totally rate this movie. Do you have a rating?
I've got 1. All right, so the rating system I had, it's kind of similar to Silo, but it's a 2,000-foot tower. How high up this tower are you climbing?
We got to climb up. I think I'm probably going to climb up to about 1,500 feet, and I'm going to see those bolts like start shaking on there, and I'm like, I think I'm coming back down, but you're down there below me, so now I have to just like back up with you on there. And
that's kind of fitting because I was thinking I would climb up to about 1,250 feet.
Yeah, so I couldn't even go any further because
we brought a longer rope.
Okay, we brought a longer rope.
Yeah, we brought a way longer rope.
It's getting to the end of it. It's getting tugged. I'm like, come on, man. And I'm like, never mind. It's a little sketchy up here. We're going to come down. Man, I'm sliding down poles and tugging on rope in this episode. Yeah. But yeah, it's not like the most amazing movie in the world, but they do a really great job at keeping you entertained the entire time. And it's not overly long. Everybody knows I don't want these 3-hour movies. So this is sitting around, an hour and a half, I think, or hour and 40 minutes. I don't remember, but
yeah, it's worth a watch.
So that's it for this episode. We're getting down nice and safe because we brought enough equipment and we didn't push our limits.
Know your limits, kids.
Till next time, peace.
All right, so the real answer, or I should say the real lie to the 2 truths and 1 lie, the actors did not have to climb up a real tower to 2,000 feet. They just had to climb to the top of a 100-foot one.